Good evening, welcome to the program. Tonight we have esteemed Democratic County Chairman
Yes, sir. Chairman.
from Erie County, Pennsylvania on the program, Mr. Bill Cole. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Louis.
Mr. Cole.
You can call me Bill.
Okay, Bill. And congratulations on your second term.
Thank you, sir. Thank
As
you very
party
much.
chairman.
Yes, sir.
That's
Thank
a
you again.
rarity, I understand.
Yes, it's the first time in 18 years.
Yeah, now we've talked about this before, and I've seen you had a viewpoint in the paper about voter turnout. I think some of the numbers that came up was the national average is 19%. The 1 year we had 32%, but that's actually an anomaly for us. You work the polls as well as I do, and it seems to be, except for 2008, 2012, when Obama was running and so forth, it seems to be right around 20% and sometimes less. And as a person who works the polls like myself, you see the same people. You see the same people every time. My question to you, sir, is what do we need to be doing, not just as a party, but as a community, as a citizenry, to get people involved, to get them interested in the process of voting?
Okay, well, that's a pretty
Big question.
extensive question. There's a lot involved there. Let me address this first. Voting in Erie County we're the number one county in the Pennsylvania.
Really?
Yes, sir. We've been the number one county for the past 5 years under my tutelage as a chair. And our average is usually 25 to 30%. We track these numbers. And one of the things that I said when I came on board was that I wanted to see the voter numbers continue to go up and not go down. I wanted to see that we could move the needle in a positive direction. So we've been able to hold on and maintain that particular those numbers, the 25 to 30%.
But do you feel like that translates into the city voters, or I mean, it's a countywide number? Isn't the turnout greater in the county than it is here in town?
Yes. I'm glad you asked that question too, because I had to address that same question with the committee people, and there's only a 5% difference. If the city has 30, the county has 35. If the city has 20, the county has 25. So there's not that great a difference between the city and the county. And let me also address this as far as talking about numbers and who votes and with the city and the county, the city-county thing. We've been the number one county. The number one county in Pennsylvania in terms of income and education is behind Erie County in terms of voter turnout.
Really?
So it is not a economic or an educational type issue that says who is going to vote, who is not going to vote. We've led the state, like I said, in the last 5 years. And this county, the number one county in Pennsylvania, has an aggregate home value of $300,000. Their education level is 4 years better throughout the entire county. It is one of the top counties in the United States, and it's in the top 10% of counties. Yet their voting turnout lags behind Erie. So I asked myself, well, if that's the case, why does that happen? We have very well educated people in that county, high income, millionaires, yet their voting turnout is not better than Erie counties. So I asked myself, why does that happen? So it can't be just the fact that there are well-educated, affluent people in a particular area driving voter turnout. So then I said, well, let me see what does drive voter turnout. Let's go look and see who does do well in voting. So the top 3 states in the United States for voter turnout are Minnesota, Maine, and Wisconsin. And I said, okay, let me drill down a little further as we do on this side of the fence.
Those are all very low population states.
Well,
Fairly large. I mean, compared to Pennsylvania.
Wisconsin?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Population is not the issue. What is the issue is, number one, these states have 5 characteristics which drive the voter turnout. Number one, they have a very high degree of civic pride.
Right.
They take a lot of pride in their state, and they take a lot of pride in the fact that they go to the polls. Secondly, they have no restrictions on voting. All of them have same-day voter registration and voting.
Really?
Yes, sir. That's what determines voter. That's what has a lot to do today with voter turnout. People say, well, in 89 and 96, we had a 89% turnout for Clinton. We live in a different world now.
Right.
There's 500 TV channels. I have a friend that told me, he says, Bill, I don't know what's going on because I'm a cook and the only channel I watch is the Food Channel. So he's insulated from the political arena and the political machinations that go on during the campaign
But
season.
isn't that his responsibility to turn the channel and try and educate himself?
That's for my responsibility. You got to stop that. I need you to know who's running. You can't just tell. I love food too, but we got to get you to turn it off at least between 6 and 7, so that you get some of the local news and you get the national news as to who's running. So yes, that's what our committee people do. We're trying to get people. We put our heads to Facebook and to tablets and to computers, and we don't have to really turn away from that. We have so many things to distract us. We live in a highly distracted society where we can insulate ourselves away from the political arena. They say, what about the presidential? How come the voter turnout is always so large for the presidential? Well, look what's going on now. We have a big brass band. You've got 16 Republican candidates running. It's in the news every day what one of them has said or being quoted on. So you have a nice long run-up to the actual election, whereas these city elections, city council, school board, they've got a short window. They don't dominate the television with commercials. They don't dominate the paper with quotes, the radio, that sort of thing. They don't have that luxury that a presidential candidate or a gubernatorial candidate or a congressional campaign would have. So they don't have that. Now, I don't want to make excuses for our numbers because they can be better, and that is my job. People say, no, it's not your job in the party. They don't want to take on the voter turnout issue, but I took it on from the time I got elected. And if you see my first article that I was quoted in the papers, I wanted to address that issue in trying to raise the voter turnout levels in Erie. We have to work on our civic pride.
We do.
We have to.
And I notice locally when people do turn out, it is because of the quality or the caliber and the message of the candidates that are running.
Yes, sir.
We saw that recently in the primary, where people that maybe we didn't know that much about suddenly rose to the top, and wow, there was kind of a couple of surprises there.
Yeah, and to give an example of what you just said, like I said, I really get into this. I cut up the numbers and drill down every single election. When Senator Wiley ran for senator, his particular district, which we cut it out, see how he did in his district, had an 87% turnout.
Really?
Just in that district. Sean did an excellent job. He was a brilliant candidate, and people liked him, and they came out and voted for him. 87% turnout in that district overall. Ryan Bazzaro also had an outstanding turnout. But these were individuals who, when I went to their different political functions, they had new people. They brought people on board.
Young people.
Yes, sir, exactly. Young people. The young people don't vote either. Yes, they do. But you have to, if it's
engaged,
right, if it's in realty, if it's location, in politics, it's candidate.
Right.
So you have to have attractive candidates who resonate with the public. Over the years, I've had different candidates run. Some of them have been very good. Some of them have done very well and brought a lot of people out. But the candidate has a lot to do with it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me not to interrupt you.
Yes, sir.
I saw that, speaking of Representative Bazzaro, isn't he talking about sponsoring a bill for a same-day registration? And
Yes.
do you know anything about how that might be going, or?
Well, I haven't heard anything on it. I know he wants to introduce it and he wants to get it voted on or looked at and go to committee, whatever they need to do, but it's an excellent idea on his behalf. And we're very fortunate to have Representative Bazzaro. That's why I say him and Sean have been excellent additions. Not only have they done excellent down in Harrisburg, they've brought more people to the political arena. So
Right.
they can do those kinds of things, and we need them.
So we need quality
Yes, sir.
candidates.
We need more Sean Wileys and Ryan Bazzaros.
I'll tell you a funny story about Mr. Bazzaro.
Yeah.
My daughters were so enamored with him, they wanted to vote for him, and one daughter actually registered to vote so she could vote for him. I kept my mouth shut. After she got registered, I says, okay, I'm glad you registered, but you live in the city of Erie, dear. I'm gonna go vote anyway.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good to hear. And that's what it does. That's exactly what it does when you get good candidates. And we have had good candidates throughout. We're getting better quality candidates, and we are working on it. One of the things that had to happen, though, we had to get the Democratic Party and the Republican Party and the Independents on board to get their parties together, get their committee people together, get them working. And we've done that. That's why we're seeing a better class of candidates come out and more candidates come out for the various offices.
Right. So what do we need to do other than that, other than candidates? I mean, is there, in terms of education, is there something the county office of elections should be doing to better inform people, done from the courthouse?
Well, I think that the media and the courthouse has, from my perspective, they've done their job.
Really?
I'm very pleased with the media and with what the Board of Elections has done in terms of helping me, helping the party, and helping candidates get their message out and make the awareness level. One thing that we learned to do with the party, we've got these signs here.
Right?
And this is a simple, nonpartisan sign that
Just says vote.
Right, and we put them up in laundromats, barbershop, beauty salon, businesses. They've been very receptive. Even the place at Princess has one for their employees, because like I said earlier, Louis, we live in a very distracted society. When one of the TV stations did an interview at the public library as to why people did not vote, they said they weren't even aware that there was an election.
That's sad.
You know, so that's why we try to get these kinds of signs up. You can get one of these from Erie County Democratic Party, just call us, we'll email it to you, you can just print it out. But those are the kinds of, the things that need to happen so that we can get our voter turnout, our numbers better. And I'm getting calls from all over the county, which would kill for our numbers.
That's great. That's great news. But shouldn't we have a precursor to this sign that says, get out and register, your time's running out?
Well, I'm out registering voters now.
Really?
Yes, sir, I go out, I've been out for the last 3 weeks every day. Registering voters. Also, the Democratic women are out registering voters. So we're moving on that too. The party's moving on that. That's one of the things that we wanted to do and one of our goals. Because I'm glad you brought that up, Louis. This is very, very important. If anyone wants to register and has not registered, if you're going to get married, if you're going to be changing your address within the next year, it is utterly important that you do that this year. Next year, the presidential teams are going to be in here. They're going to be registering voters in mass numbers, and they're going to be shipping all that down to our local office. Well, they may be processing a small amount, maybe 25 to 30 a week this year. Next year, it's going to be like 100 to 100, 200. And that's not what they're designed for, to do forms. In addition to that, those forms that go in next year should be in the best handwriting, because if they can't read them, they don't have time to stop and call you and say, hey, I'm not sure who you are.
Right. I know Sandy.
So,
I know Sandy.
So
down the courthouse.
this is the year to do your voter registration, simply put. Please go out now and register to vote now, because next year it's going to be like it was before.
It'll be swamped.
And the result of that is on election day, I get a lot of calls saying, hey, Bill, you told me to go register, and I registered, and they don't know who I am right now. So when you register, about 3 weeks ago, they couldn't process those forms that fast with the number that are coming in. In addition to that, they have other duties they have to take care of too.
Absolutely. And I see people that come into my polling site that have moved, and they actually changed their registration, and they're still coming back to the place they were before. And then we have to look up in the book and say, no, ma'am, I'm sorry, I really appreciate you
Good,
coming,
Louis.
but you need to go over to
You know what I'm talking
Andrews.
about. That's music to my ears to hear that, because
Yeah.
I worked the poll for 15 years too at the state, at the voter. I was a judge of elections, clerk, and all that. So I know how that is when you come in and tell them, oh, you're not on our books anymore, or you've moved. They don't want to hear that.
They don't.
No.
And then I'm always concerned, well, will they actually make that trip and go that extra few
Yes,
blocks
yes, yeah, right.
to do it? Or because sometimes they leave and they're not quite happy.
No, they're not happy. They're never happy when they leave. They've been told that they can't vote. So, yeah, it's important that you get that taken care of, because sometimes they move across town, and that's always difficult. So you got to go all the way to the west side, or I think it's far, but that's what you have to tell them. You have to go to the west side, or you have to go to South Erie, and that's where your polling place is at.
So one last question. We don't, as yet, necessarily have to deal with voter ID. I know on our books, if it's a new voter, it will sometimes say voter ID required, but that's not really the law now, is it?
No, the voter ID was thrown out as a result of going through the court process. They said it was, not really. It didn't pass muster.
Right.
Make it simple. So that we don't have to worry about that. Now, if you're newly registered person, yes, you do have to show ID. And when we register you to vote, we ask you, do you have ID? Because there's two places on that form that want to know what your last four digits of your social security number is, or ask for your state ID or driver's license number.
Right.
So you would need ID at that point. However, once you've gone in and voted at your particular polling place, you can go back in and vote again, and you have to show ID.
Right. And like I say, most of these people, I've known them for years.
And same, yeah, sure.
You get the
True,
same
yes,
old
sir.
people,
Uh-huh.
and I'll joke to them,
Yeah.
I need to see some ID, and they laugh in my face.
Yeah, you see them so often, you know who they are. And if they don't come, you call them, hey, I'm coming, I haven't voted yet.
Right.
So you know what to expect to come in.
So I just wanted to talk to you about this because I find it vitally important. There's so many young people, and we see it now today, that seem disenfranchised, that feel like they're not part of the process. And it seems like they turn to violence and other ways to try and express their needs and desires, when in fact, if they took part in the process, chances are some of their needs and concerns could be addressed.
Yeah, that's the next important. I work with people all over the state, and I'm going to give you an example of what you said was just true. In Pittsburgh, they found out, one of the things that police do in Pittsburgh is they do roundups. So they have a lot of people standing on the corner, and they'll say, okay, what's going on here? And you don't have this problem too much in Erie, but in the larger cities, you have a lot of guys just standing on the corner. And a lot of times the police will pull up and say, okay, who's who are you, that kind of thing, because maybe there's been a charge of a shooting or a drug dealing in that area. So they'll ask for ID. They say, okay, who are you, and do you have any warrants on you? Well, they found, the people in Pittsburgh have found the people who show voter registration cards don't go to jail.
Really?
So they're encouraging those
another
guys
reason to go vote.
that's why registered voters are not like crazy, because they said, Bill, we found out that when they asked people if they didn't have any idea, they said, well, we got to take it on town and find out who you are. But when they said, well, I got my voter registration card, they said, okay, let me see it. If they showed it, they were gone. They said, okay, you can go.
Right.
But the people didn't have ID, didn't have anything, because some people don't drive,
Right.
And so they don't have state ID. But they said, we encourage all the youth to get voter registration cards. That's probably the most important identification card coming up for the younger generation. Because as you know, if you take any federal tests, passports, that is a legitimate piece of ID for a person. When they list ID, voter registration card is one that they list on there as a legitimate form of ID that the federal government will accept.
Absolutely, because it's a civic responsibility.
Mhm. Yes.
It's
Oh, that's-
not just
it's
a little
huge.
piece of paper. This
Right.
is saying that you take part in the process.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
It's very important.
Yes. So I encourage myself, now when you get your voter ID card, I say guard it the same way you do your social security and your driver's license or your state ID, because it carries the same amount of weight.
Right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to ask? I know you're very busy and you have like 8 other stops to make, but
Well, one of the things that's going to help voter turnout is increased voter awareness. The candidates nights, we'd like people to attend that. If there's any candidates issues on TVs, attend that. The campaign literature you get, take a minute and read that, because you can go to the website for that candidate, you can go on Facebook and find out about that candidate. So even if you just pick up a piece of paper, you see it from a candidate or they hand it to you, take that home and read it, and you'll be an informed voter.
that's right. And a lot of these candidates are on Facebook now, and I'm sorry to say
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot more of my news from Facebook now than I do from TV.
Yeah,
A lot quicker. at
Yes,
least.
it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a little embarrassing. But even on this channel, we have candidate access to the candidates during every election, where each candidate is offered the opportunity to come in and just state their case to the public. And this is who I am, this is what I want, this is what I stand for, and this is what I want to do for you, and this is why this is important to me. And we had all candidates here during the primary except for 2, I think.
That's excellent that you folks do that, and that's a huge boon to that's what's keeping our numbers up. Things like that.
Right.
That's what's keeping our numbers up. We thank you for that too. I thank you.
Well, I thank you for being here
Yes, sir.
today.
Thank
And
you,
if
Louis.
there's anything I can do to help you get more people involved in the political process, please let me know. I will be there.
Thank you, sir. I will.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Good night.